The Handkerchief by Great 78.
Chapter 121 Locks and Lavelier. Draco awoke in the pre-dawn hours. Before they had fallen asleep, he had transfigured his own handkerchief into a blanket to cover them. Now he cautiously and gently rearranged it to cover more of Hermione, as she seemed to be shivering in her sleep. "I'm awake," she said, snuggling closer to him. "I didn't mean to rouse you. I only thought you looked cold," he explained. "A bit. I cast a warming charm earlier, but the wand that belongs to she who must not be named is fairly resistant to my magic. I really wish I had my old wand back." Draco smacked himself on the forehead. "In all the excitement with the baby, I've not had a chance to ask my mother about your wands. I'll do it when I go home." "Wasn't yesterday also the day you were going to try to go to Gringotts?" Hermione asked. "Merlin's sack, it has been a long 24 hours. Was that all yesterday?" "Yes. I went first thing that morning. No luck, though. They would not let me into the Lestrange vault, as I'm not a blood relative of the family." "Well, thanks for trying, anyway." Thinking of the things that he'd grabbed from the vault, he pulled her close and kissed her temple. Then he remembered. I did grab some extra wands from the vault. Just some old black family wands. No idea whose they were. You're welcome to one, if you'd like to try something else besides hers." She was pensive, thinking about it. Draco could feel her mind turning the idea over and examining it from all sides. Finally she said, "No, I'm going to need her specific wand soon. I haven't told you this yet, but we're not just going to try to convince someone to let us into the Lestrange vault." She sighed, as if girding her strength to continue, and then went on. "I'm going to polyjuice as Bellatrix, and Ron will go disguised. Harry and Griphook will be under the invisibility cloak." Draco froze. Fuck no, she was not doing that. "Fuck no, you're not doing that." "I dare say that I am," she said. "And I'd love to see you try and stop me." Could he just apparate her straight into his bedroom at Andromeda's house? Perhaps directly into an airplane, his mind corrected in Blaze's voice. About to take off for Malta. That wouldn't be too weird, would it? A couple lying under a blanket, suddenly appearing out of thin air in front of hundreds of muggles, right? "Hermione." "Draco." "You know this is a horrible idea, right?" "Do you have a better one?" A few moments of silence, then he ventured, "Send Weasley alone." "Be serious, love." "Yes, that would be ridiculous." Draco mused. "Weasley would lose his mind at the sight of all that gold." "Draco!" "I'm kidding, Mai." Mostly, he thought, rubbing her arm to warm her. "And to that end, I need your help." He waited, knowing it was going to be something big. I need a bit of hair from Bellatrix." She had explained whilst they dressed. When Potter had first mentioned the idea of breaking into Gringotts, his original thought had been simply to transfigure her and Ron, perhaps posing as another pure-blood family member. Once they reached the deep recesses of the bank, they would stun the accompanying goblin and use Griphook to get them into the Lestrange vault. When they had first arrived at Shell Cottage, Hermione had noticed a single black hair on her jumper. It was rather long and wiry, jet black. She had assumed it was Bellatrix's, as she'd spent so much time at the manor, lying at Bellatrix's feet. She suggested polyjuice, and the newer, more foolproof plan came together quickly. But once the idea was so enthusiastically adopted by Potter and Weasley, She began to overthink it. What if it wasn't Bellatrix's hair at all? Greyback also had long dark hair. She thought one or two of the Snatchers might have had similar hair as well. Even Narcissa had a bit of black in her long hair. She'd grown obsessively worried that their plan would all be for naught. If anyone but Bellatrix appeared in the mirror, the whole plan was scuppered. "I was just going to chance it, you know, hope for the best. After all, lightning does not strike twice in the same spot, so what were the chances that I would end up like last time? My mother's cat, Henrietta, has straight white fur, Hermione. You know what I mean." She huffed in exasperation. "So, can Narcissa get a strand of hair from her?" A plan was forming in his mind. Yes, she can get it," he answered, knowing full well that he was never going to ask his mother to do this. "Thank you, Draco. I love you." He gathered her in his arms for one last kiss within the protective bay. "I love you too, my." The sun was still below the horizon when they walked back up the beach, towards where the cottage stood behind its Fidelius charm. He walked with his arm around her waist, holding her close, distracted by the task that she'd asked of him. Suddenly, a figure stood up from behind a bush off to their right. Draco drew his wand, turning his body protectively around Hermione's, but she simply squeezed his upper arm. "Dean? You startled me. Us," Hermione said uncertainly. Dean brushed sand from his trousers. "Sorry, Hermione. Draco. Luna was awake in the kitchens in the middle of the night last night. She started to say that she had a tough time sleeping because she was used to you being there. She tried to backtrack and explain that you were just being very quiet last night, but I figured it out." "What's up, then, Dean?" Draco asked guardedly, yet politely. He was on decent enough footing with Neville, but the other Gryffindors in their year group were a mixed bag. Dean sighed. "You know, I was out there with Ted, and I went back after. They hadn't taken Ted's wand. He'd fallen on it, you see. Hearing the news tonight about the baby, it made me think of him, you know. I mean, I owe him my life." Dean bowed his head. "He was a good man, and his family might want this back." Dean withdrew a wand from his trouser pocket. "After Ted died, Griphook and I had been hiding for a few weeks in this old abandoned train depot, in the middle of nowhere near Shropshire. I kept my valuables locked in this little trunk, charmed to look like an old Weetabix box. You know, the cereal. Just in case anyone came along, they might think it was rubbish and ignore it." Hermione nodded, while Draco tried to work out what a Weetabix was. "Anyway, the way we were caught, it was stupid, but it was kind of sudden. Our fire had nearly gone out, and we were out of wood, and it was cold. The place had huge holes in it, the walls, the wind just roared through it, you know. We usually gathered wood and nicked food late at night under cover of darkness, see?" Draco and Hermione nodded. "Well, it wasn't quite dark yet, but Griphook decided to sneak out for a few pieces of wood. 10 feet outside of the depot, he was spotted. They took my wand, of course, and beat the shit out of us, but they left the cereal box." "Dean, how—" Hermione asked, in awe. "When we got here, a few days after, I tried to summon it. Used mine, Bill's, even Ron's wands, but no luck. I think the protective enchantments on the box prevented it, you know." "Right," they murmured. "So one night I borrowed Ron's wand and apparated there, grabbed the box and tore out of there as quickly as I could, came right back." Dean smiled. "So here, take this to Dromeda. She'll probably want to put it away for safekeeping. Maybe Teddy will take it to Hogwarts with him." Dean held out the wand to Draco, handle first. It was one of the most trusting actions Draco had ever seen. He took it cautiously. "Dean, are you sure? You don't have your own wand anymore. I'm sure Ted would not begrudge you it," Hermione said. Dean blew out a breath. "Yeah, I thought about it. It has been difficult not having one for the last several weeks, and I'm sure Ted wouldn't begrudge it, but I felt like it might really mean something to Teddy one day, and I'm certain it would mean something to Andromeda now. Tell you what, since your wand is probably stuck at my house, take one of these." Draco withdrew the shrunken bag from his pocket of his trousers, enlarged and opened it carefully, and removed a few of the wands inside. "Are you just stockpiling these, mate?" Dean asked jokingly. "Kind of. After everything that's happened with Potter's and Hermione's wands, I thought it best to be prepared. I got these from my family vault yesterday." Dean tried all three. One, made of cypress with a core of tiger whisker, seemed to work best for him. "Thanks, Malfoy, Draco. I owe you one," the wizard said. "Just do me a favor. Don't let anyone know that you have it right now, okay? Or where you got it from. I'm sure it would raise a lot of questions here in this cottage if you suddenly showed up with a wand after moping around without one for weeks. If the time comes when you need a wand." The prophecy flashed in his mind. The beginning of May, only a few weeks away. "Just pretend you found it or something." The three of them laughed a bit. "Good idea, I'll do that," Dean agreed. "And as for showing up with one now, that's true. More questions than it's worth." The Gryffindor wizard turned to Draco's witch. "Hermione, they'll be starting breakfast soon. I'll see you in there." She nodded, and he pocketed the cypress wand and hurried inside the wards, with a parting wave to Draco. "That was really nice of you," Hermione said, turning back to him. "Well, I'm a nice bloke," Draco drawled. "Just keep telling yourself that." Hermione hummed into his neck, reaching her arms around his shoulders for a final hug. He chuckled lightly into her hair, blowing away a curl as it tickled his nose. They kissed goodbye, and he disapparated back to the Tonks house. He got ready to sleep, quickly. He'd been awake for nearly 24 hours, with only a short rest in the armchair, outside of Tonks's room, and on the little beach near the cottage. He was exhausted. As he settled onto his bed, he smiled again at her words. Maybe it was a nice thing to do, but it was also quite necessary. If Trelawney's prophecy was at all accurate, in a matter of a few short weeks the entire wizarding world could be embroiled in a battle to the death. He had little doubt that the Gryffindor would join the fray. Many will suffer, many will die. Maybe with a wand, Dean would have a fighting chance. That afternoon, Draco entered the kitchen to find Andromeda dozing as she sat at her place at the table. "Andromeda, why don't you go back to bed?" he asked. "I'll go soon. Just need a bit of dinner, breakfast," she answered with a yawn. Draco checked his watch. 2 o'clock. "I think this might be lunch." "Sounds great, thanks." He stood flat-footed a moment. He'd made sandwiches, but he knew a cold sandwich wasn't the most appetizing meal when you were tired. He considered calling Raffi, but felt that was not very sporting. The elf was likely tired as well, and Pym, bless him, had no more idea than Draco about cooking. "Okay," he said vaguely. 10 minutes later he felt unreasonably proud of himself as he settled a jacket potato with butter and some spring onions that he found in a glass jar in the muggle refrigerator in front of his aunt. Andromeda opened her eyes from her doze. "Oh, Draco, you didn't have to—" She looked down for a moment at the potato. "My goodness, I've never had a jacket potato with pickles in it before." "Oh, Merlin, with those pickles? I'm sorry, let me—" he began, but she snatched the plate away from his grasp. I am certain it will be delicious. I assume you've never cooked before?" she asked, with a smile. No," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "It was my first attempt." "Well, it was admirable, and very delicious," his aunt said as she dug a fork into the potato. "The pickles give it a surprising crunch." "I'm not sure that a jacket potato is supposed to have surprising anything, but thank you, all the same." Draco pulled his plate towards him, festooned with the same jacket potato and butter and pickles. He hesitantly forked up a bite and found that his aunt was correct. There was a surprising crunch. Still, he was quite hungry, so he finished his potato in about 5 bites and looked at the bowl of fruit in the center of the table, trying to decide how many apples he could eat without appearing rude. "How was Hermione?" "Quite well. She's, in the midst of making new plans, of course." "Exactly what is it that they were up to?"
Well,
I understand." Andromeda smiled. "You don't really know for sure, and what you do know you can't tell me."
Draco chuckled. "Something like that." He got up and washed his plate and fork in the sink. Then he remembered everything that had happened yesterday, including his time at the bank, and his time on the beach with Dean Thomas. "I actually have something for you. 2 somethings, as a matter of fact."
"Oh, pray tell, what are they?"
His aunt smiled pleasantly at him. He reached into his pocket and withdrew the shrunken rucksack that he'd filled at Gringotts Bank. "Yesterday I was at Gringotts. I know it was a bit foolish to go, but it was important. Whilst I was there, in the Black Vault, I found a few things, and I took them. Just in case I'm never able to go back." Andromeda nodded her understanding. "There was this piece of jewelry. I thought it might be a bit sentimental for you." He withdrew the wooden box, placing it on the table. From the moment he'd withdrawn the box from the bag, his aunt seemed to recognize it. She held her breath and reached out hesitantly for it.
"This was my great-great-great-grandmother, Andromeda's. She died before I was born. My grandmother always told me I reminded her of my namesake. I'm not sure she meant it in a positive way."
Aunt Andromeda chuckled. She opened the box then, smiling down eagerly at the necklace.
"Any time Father took us to Gringotts, he would show us the pieces intended for us when we were older. I loved this necklace. It looked like sunshine. It made me think of the most lovely summer's day. You know what I mean?"
Draco did.
"Thank you for bringing this. I honestly thought I'd never see it again."
"Well, it's several years too late for your betrothal, but perhaps you can use it to commemorate becoming a grandmother," Draco suggested.
"That's a lovely idea."
His aunt unclasped the necklace and put it on, conjuring a mirror to look at it.
"It's wonderful. Thank you for this."
"There's something else," Draco began, reaching into his pocket to withdraw Ted's wand. "Dean Thomas thought you might like to have—" But as soon as Andromeda caught sight of the wand, she'd broken down into sobs. Draco froze, unsure what to do. He wasn't the best with emotions, and he couldn't quite tell if these were happy tears or sad ones.
"Ted's wand! Oh my God, Draco, how—"
Draco relayed the story as told by Dean.
"That was so brave, so noble of him. Thank you for bringing this back."
She sighed heavily.
"It's hard to think. I saw this wand perform incredible magic every day for 30-something odd years, you know? It's only a stick, just a bit of beech and caladrius feather, but it did amazing things. Someday, perhaps, Teddy will use it to do amazing things too."
Her tears fell heavy in her lap.
"Thank you, Draco. I can't tell you how much these mean to me."
Then she hugged him round the neck, and after a brief second he hugged her back. As she wiped her tears away, she asked,
"So, you were in the Black Vault. Was this necklace the only thing you took out?"
She chuckled.
"I will take that as a no."
There were some beautiful pieces in there, I remember, from when I was a child. I'm sure she'll love it, whatever it is."
Draco reddened and stammered, "Well, I hope so." Aunt and nephew shared a conspiratorial smile across the table.
Thank you for listening to this chapter of The Handkerchief by Great78.